we drove by the stadium. And I was like, oh, what is this?
It is a very beautiful one, but we're not using it.
I don't know if this is just my dream or if this is the reality.
If it is about the equal, maybe this idealistic view isn't very far from being positive.
City planning was about separating functions.
What can be in the building and how that building can be used.
It is a universe in itself, and it's a universe around this very specific club with this brand.
What do you like most in Armenian architecture and what do you dislike most in it? City Talks-ն եք դիտում, ես Մարկ Գրիգորյանն եմ։ Այսօրվա մեր հյուրը գերմանական Gerkan Mark and Partners կազմակերպության ղեկավարներից մեկն է Թոբիաս Քեյլը։
Thank you for having me. Hi.
Մենք խոսելու ենք անգլերեն, բայց դուք կարողանաք թարգմանությունը դիտել սուբտիտրերով ձեր էկրանների տակ։ Թոբիաս, Wikipedia page for your company lists notable projects that you have fulfilled since 1965.
Yes.
It was very interesting to see that 15 of these notable projects were stadiums.
Yes.
Stadiums in very different countries, cities, and including the Olympic Stadium in Kiev. But the most famous of those is a stadium I believe everyone in Armenia knows about. It's Santiago Bernabeu in Madrid.
Yes, about to be finished.
About to be finished. Now, please tell me a little bit of what is that stadium and what have you done there?
For this stadium, GmbH worked with a local Spanish architect. And the task was to sort of combine the many little episodes of ongoing construction that has been since the history of Bernabeu. They kept adding here and there and little bits of pieces. And eventually we were approached by the club to come up with a big picture, to combine it, to make it one big unit, including a museum, including different venues for fans and other, obviously, followers of this very particular club.
A hotel, probably?
Everything that is, yeah, it's a little city within itself, all around this soccer.
I believe it's very important to tell the Armenian viewers and listeners that a stadium for a big club of European and even, global
In this case.
scale, it involves, as you very, very rightly mentioned, as a museum. Then it's going to be some executive places and lodges for
lounges.
VIP guests, because there are usually a lot of VIP guests. A hotel, at least one hotel, maybe several. And the field, the pitch itself.
Yes. No, as you said, it's much more than just a little square of grass to play soccer on. It is a universe in itself, and it's a universe around this very specific club with this brand. And this is what makes the stadium in addition, it also has a facade that is speaking to the public around it. It is supposed to be, in the longer term, a media facade that shows images, stories of the club, so that you don't even need to go in to see, but
because usually going in costs a lot of money.
A lot of money, and this stadium as well is in the middle of a city. So now usually stadiums are dead entities for most of the time. They only have these 90 minutes plus minus games.
Once a week or twice a week?
In this case, 3 times a week as they play Champions League, any other leagues and everything, and different teams. But you always have this problem of legacy, emptiness around a stadium. So one of the biggest tasks in modern stadium planning is how to activate the space 24/7. And Bernabeu is one of these new generations of stadia where this has been a predominant topic in the design, as of course you don't want this dead shell in the middle of a city. Very similar to other stadiums that we're working on currently throughout the globe. This is now the next step. And these stadia that, you still have these greenfield stadia that are outside of cities, easy to get to, lots of parking, and it's only for soccer, but they then rest there, whereas if stadia are within a city, they need to be active. They can't be empty and left alone as a sleeping giant that only wakes up for a few moments within a week.
Can we say that what you are doing in Madrid now might be also a glimpse of tomorrow's architecture?
It is definitely, I don't know if it's something in terms of architecture, it's definitely something of tomorrow's city planning, or it's something where we have become smarter throughout the past generations, that we understand that we cannot use, or that we cannot longer have monofunctional things within cities. Everything should be used multiple times over, in the best case, in order to save resources, in order to have attractive cities. If you think back in the 50s, city planning was about separating functions. Now with high-rises that we build in China, we are designing vertical cities where we want different functions in different levels, so that also we don't create monoblocks of just office or just living. So in the best case, and maybe that's the future, things come together as new units of multifold functions, and maybe even ever-changing functions.
And when you say creating different functions on different levels, it also involves gardens,
yes,
green spaces.
Yes, of course.
Now, since we started our conversation with the stadium, there is one stadium in Yerevan, a very beautiful one. It's called Hrazdan. It rests quite peacefully on the slope of a hill and goes down to the river Hrazdan. It is a very beautiful one, but we're not using it.
Yes.
What are your thoughts about that stadium?
The very first day I was in Armenia, actually last November. Since then I was 5 times to Yerevan.
You're not losing time?
No, can't lose time. We drove by the stadium. And I was like, oh, what is this? Because it is a very unique stadium. As you said, it's sitting in this position and it's looking into this gorge, a gorge that is significant for Yerevan. And it is instantly different to many other typologies of stadia. The greenfield, the one that is happens to be in the city, or even, I don't know, maybe one of the most iconic ones that we ever built, Cape Town, where you have this stadium and then you see this Table Mountain behind. It was one of those where you clearly understand why this stadium has this shape and this view. And I've never been inside, I have to admit. I only know it from driving by with the car. But I always imagine that you sit in these stands and you see the pitch, and behind the pitch you see landscape. I don't know if this is just my dream or if this is the reality.
That's the reality,
okay.
I can assure you.
Very good. And also on this very first visit, I met with the Soccer Association of Armenia. And my first question to them was, why are you thinking about a new stadium? You have this beautiful one. Then they explained, well, the construction is unsafe. If we want to qualify this for FIFA matches of any kind, we have to revise all the egress capacities, all the escape ways, fire life safety, all the stands are of a different age. The roof is about to fall.
There is no roof, actually.
Yeah, well, anything that you would
Yes,
have
I know.
there.
What you mean, we call it the second...
The second tier.
Tier,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. So basically they say we can't use it anymore, and they're playing somewhere else. But the effort that it would take to renovate it would be equal to building a new stadium.
Well, that's good. Then you can renovate it.
Yes, but of course you need to have people that share this idealistic view of renovating it. Maybe one topic could be to tear it down and at the same place rebuild a new one.
You know what? When we talk about the structures of a city, the urban structures of a city, we always deal with notions of continuity and tradition. Now, if we're talking about that, this stadium has a very positive aura around it. And everyone would associate it with big victories of the Ararat football team.
Everybody tells me about these stories as well.
Yes, yes. Where
tearing down Wembley.
Where are you from Germany?
Now I live in Berlin. I was born in Hanover, just like one of your staff. She has an aunt there. So, yeah.
No. Why did I ask that? Because one of the peak moments of the stadium was when Ararat met Bayern Munich, and won.
Yes.
And it was, Bayern Munich of many world champions, and of the legendary Franz Beckenbauer and Gerd Müller and Uli Hoeneß.
Yes.
So it has all these positives around it. And if it is about the equal, maybe this idealistic view isn't very far from being positive to the city traditions and continuity.
Most definitely, yes. I mean, compared to Wembley, Wembley has maybe a slightly bigger, but a very similar aura to soccer as a whole. As a German, I know the story of the Wembley goal, where the ball went not in the goal as a German. For the English, it was clearly inside, no, the other way around, nonetheless. So eventually they came to the point where they decided to tear down the old Wembley Stadium and rebuild it completely. This could be an option for Yerevan as well. Yet another reason that is constantly recited when exactly in this discussion is the problem of transportation. Sadly, your transportation system is not the best when it comes to public transportation. And if you really want to gather a crowd to fill such a stadium, they need to get there. There's no place to park a car, and hardly any public transportation to get people there. That's another reason why everybody else is then promoting greenfield stadia. We can have big parking lots. This is not the best approach, but it's the easy way to do it. Not judging on this one. And another reason that is also always mentioned in these discussions is that what's the capacity of Hrazdan Stadium?
Hrazdan. Well done. Well, it used to be 70 to 75,000. It is less, of course, now.
Yeah. And soccer is still not drawing this much of a crowd for regular games. So you need...
In Armenia.
Yes, you need national games, you need Bayern Munich to come, you need Arsenal London or Liverpool or Brasilia to come and play to maybe fill this stadium. So it's another reason that I constantly hear is, but we can never fill it. And if you only have a stadium that is 1/3 filled, the atmosphere is just not the same. It always feels like playing in an empty stadium. That again is a good reason why, especially soccer is promoting a different stadium. As much as this is an icon, and I would hate to see it go.
Now, let's change the topic a bit. your company built at least 4 different airports. Two in Berlin, one in Hanover, I think.
No, Hamburg.
Hamburg, and another one in
Stuttgart.
So you know how to build airports.
Frankfurt and some others.
Yeah, well, okay, you know how to build airports, and they all, I mean, what I saw on the web, they all were very different one from another. And there is this, the Yerevan airport. It's not big, it's very compact.
This one I can even pronounce.
Very easy to use. But next to the acting airport, there is the old one, a very beautiful one.
Yes.
What do you think can be the future of this building?
Now, there is the problem that all flights in and out from Europe arrive at 4 in the morning and depart at 5. And that's the time when I'm at the airport. So I've never seen this building at daytime myself. I only know it from taxiing by on the airfield side. It is an icon. I've seen pictures, of course, but there I don't have enough experience with this building to allow myself any judgment. But maybe just as the stadium, I know that many Armenians, and especially Armenian architects that I've talked to, are deeply attached to this building. So there must be an aura, but my experience is 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning taxiing by, so I don't want to judge on this.
And definitely we will need, a lot of conversation and understanding of what can be in the building and how that building can be used.
But reuse of airports, the very first project of GMP was an airport, Tegel Airport in Berlin.
Tegel Airport, I've been there.
And everybody who has been there somehow either loves it or they hate it. Most people like it. And this has been a revolution. And it was by the 2 founders of GMP, Meinhard von Gerkan and Volkwin Mark.
In 1965.
In 1965, they came directly from university. Both were working in different architecture offices to do competitions before. And Meinhard von Gerkan had a diploma thesis on an airport. And then came this, back then, public competition. And they competed and they won as these 2 fresh guys from university. Nobody trusted they could do it. They even had people from the airport committee come to their office address to check if this is really an architecture office. Back then, of course, there was no architecture office. They had friends with telephones on their desk, and back then still lines and drawing by hand, pretending to be architects, so that they would believe that they are capable of doing this big airport. And so basically, airports are within the DNA. And Tegel, now that the other airport in Berlin is finally opened, has been put out of use. So we have a very similar problem, that we have a fairly iconic building that is part of building history. It is now a registered monument. But what do you do with an airport if it's not an airport anymore? In this case, we were lucky enough that one of the universities from Berlin needed space, and they're now moving into this terminal building, and we're using the airfield around for startup clusters, for residential areas, and basically this whole airport area, by the way, almost the same size as Academic City, is now being transferred into a new part of the city with this airport as the nucleus, as the thing that's there, the thing that brings legacy and a legend to it and identity right away.
When you said academic city, you mean the project of the Armenian government
Yes.
of building an academic city near Ashtarak?
Between Yerevan, Ashtarak, and the third one.
Okay, tell me a bit about that.
Yes, we were approached by the Armenian government to support in the first stage finding a vision or defining what this academic city should be. There has been the idea of regrouping, reframing the many universities that Yerevan has, 26, 28, depending on how you count, and recluster them to upgrade the academic system, also to simplify the system a bit that is dispersed in many different universities. So they want to have a number of different clusters. And as the facilities in most of these universities are not up to date, some are about to fall apart. Modern technologies are hard to implement into these buildings. Modern ways of teaching are different within these structures that are based on very small classroom-like structures. They had the idea that it needs new space, but similar to the old Tamanyan plan, where most of these universities are around the Green Ring at least.
And they were forming
part of this, the Green Ring.
Academic quarters.
Yeah. So following this idea, they said we need a new academic city where all of them move. And then they get modern, up-to-date structures where modern education can be done. And we don't have the drain of the best brains to go abroad, but maybe stay in Armenia if we can upgrade the academic system.
Well, to have the best brains stay in Armenia, we should have universities that will be compatible on the international level.
Exactly.
At least within first 300 of them.
Yes.
Least.
Well, the aim is even more ambition than 300. But that's exactly what the vision of the government was. And out of coincidence, we met in Munich and then Berlin and came into discussion. And they said, well, I think you can help us define this vision that we have on the academic level to a built environment. What does it need? What is this? What is this academic city? And this was the phase one that we started in November and now stopped, or not stopped, but came to the end of phase one. And we will now proceed with phase two, which is then going deeper into the planning and eventually will come out as architecture in the long run. But this first phase was really about defining what is the academic city. We spoke, of course, with the government, with the representatives of this academic city fund, with professors, with students, got to know Armenia. The Armenians were in Germany. We visited the Tegel project, which I just described. We went to Munich, Garching, to Heidelberg, all places that had a very similar problem that they had, in this case, working in quite renowned universities within their old cities, but somehow they couldn't grow. They couldn't fit these new technologies, new lasers, new other things that a university needs to keep developing these ideas. This wouldn't fit in the old shells that they had. So I think Munich is still the best example. They gave up the top address within the old city of Munich and moved out to, yet again, a former airport area in Garching, and started this new campus. It took about 30 years, and now the students love it. But at first, very much like here in Yerevan, everybody says, why do we need to go out there? Eventually, the train reached it. Everything is connected, and now it is a perfectly functioning academic environment. And the students like it, the professors like it. It just takes time. Human beings are too cozy.
It always takes time and efforts. And there will be also elements of fundamental change of the university system for Armenia, because it is now based on very different organizational structure. Since we started to talk about universities, your organization has an academy, an architectural academy. Mm-hmm. What's it all about?
It is a foundation. So it is loosely connected to GMP because GMP supports this foundation. And it is the aim of the foundation to foster young architects, so they either just graduated or they are within their last years of study, to come together in a very, very short time, twice a year. So we have 2 workshops per year, one in the spring, one in the fall, always with 16 students and international students. And we always try to involve, especially those students that might be very close to the topic. For example, we had this workshop in Armenia on the Armen film, Hay film area. And we had 4 students from Armenia because they know best and we want their input to be heard and seen.
Inside knowledge.
Inside knowledge, we need intel, yes. And then we have these 4 weeks of very intensive work. And every time I find it extremely amazing what comes out of these 16 strangers that have never seen each other before within 4 weeks of work. And this time I was following this workshop very, very closely, being part of the boards of critics and being there most of the time. And this was a lot of fun. As I said, they studied the Hay film area, which is to be connected to the academic city because there are lots of synergies. If we have a design university, they can be involved in costume designs and prop making, in cutting, video filming, many things, or also the technology cluster. The students that are into programming, they can be in the special effects. There's many things that can interact. And then you have this great piece of land and these studios, and they have a history. And as I learned, everyone has somehow childhood memories to the films that are produced there. There are very beautiful pictures that came out of these studios. And if you go there now, it's a bit sad. It is a great studio. And then on the other hand, we discover or we follow that Hollywood, for example, they're not producing in Hollywood anymore. They first went to Vancouver, to Canada. Then they came to Berlin. Now they're in Prague, they're in Budapest, and you see the movement. And
to cheaper places.
To cheaper places. And Armenia has lots of potential as you have a good workforce, you have great nature, and you're in very different settings within a short ride. And there is a basic infrastructure. So the idea was, how can we create this city for dreams? How can we use this space and bring in new life, new ideas, fresh ideas? And these students are very, very good in this.
Quite recently, a group of astronauts who were training to go to Mars spent several weeks in Armenia because they thought that one particular place of the country is quite, reminiscent. It looks like, or can look like Mars.
Okay.
So that confirms what you said. Yes. On a small place, in a small place, you can find a lot of different ways, views, nature. Yeah. Now, you are talking about Armenian architecture, and I see that you are talking about it knowledgeably.
Thank you.
Welcome. What do you like most in Armenian architecture, and what do you dislike most in it?
Wow, that's a dangerous question.
Of course it has to be.
Let's start with the easy one. What do I like? I very much like the scale. I very much like the scale of Yerevan, a city that is super walkable and never is intimidating. Spaces, even like the Republic Square, and I know your grandpa was strongly involved in this, feels like the city's living room. It is big, but it is not too big to reduce the human. You still feel in a decent scale. I like the surfaces. I like the tuff. I like many of these textures that are within the city. And now I should come to the part that I dislike. I sometimes see what you can recognize all over the world, that beautiful cities are destroyed with money in the wrong hands. The most beautiful cities remained the most beautiful cities because they were very poor cities. There was no money in the wrong time, in the wrong hands to spoil this. And there is some areas that are just, that have been spoiled. And that's sad to see. And then, of course, you have many structures from Soviet times, all these apartment blocks where you see that this cannot stay like this. This is not the right condition. And there you always, as an architect that is also very much into preservation, you're very much torn in. So how can we change this to be a modern living area, while at the same time you think, again, similar to the stadium, maybe it's easier to remove it into something good, but the good should respect the old. And that's, sometimes I notice this within the city and all over, I can't say all over the country, I've not been that far around.
I have to say that you are quite diplomatic in the difficult parts of it. But thank you very much. I do appreciate your views, and welcome back again.
Thank you.
And thank you for the interview. It was interesting and I enjoyed it.
Very much the same here. Thank you.
Բաժանորդագրվեք մեր ալիքին եւ դուք կտեսնեք շատ ավելի շատ հետաքրքիր հարցազրույցներ։ Ցտեսություն։